let's get started. Let's talk about why we're here to meet up today, right? It's the GoDaddy community meetups. We love having these weekly. We missed last week because it was 4th of July weekend and people were leaving, and so we're excited to kind of get back into the storm of things, and how appropriate for what's going on in the world today, right? So a lot of people are figuring out where they're going to be at and where they're moving forward. And one of the biggest topics that we have had the pleasure of bringing to the table in the small business community is on community. What is the definition of community, and how do you challenge yourself to see it as a community as opposed to just a network or connections? And we've got Patty Farmer with us today, and she is just fantastic. Her background, her perspective, everything that she brings to the table is so tangible and amazing. And I'm so privileged to have her as part of my community and our community here. And last time she was with us, she shared on asking powerful questions to start building your community. Today, she's going to challenge us to talk with intention, move forward, and work with our community to help monetize that. And I just appreciate Patty for being here today. I'll introduce myself. My name is Adam Griggs. I'm your host today with CLARAfi. And Jonathan, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Sure. My name is Jonathan. Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan. I'm on the GoDaddy team. I work on the social engagement aspect of things, so talking to customers and building response strategies to how we show up online. And Rachel would be here. But she is taking a much deserved vacation. So I hope she's enjoying herself. But yeah, Patty, we're both so thrilled to have you back with us.
No, thanks for being here, Jonathan. We definitely appreciate the community of GoDaddy for putting these on with us. Patty, let's talk about life. How's everything been? Let's talk about the last time we talked versus now. What do you see in the world?
Oh man, I'm just loving it. I'm like so excited. I really feel like, now everybody's kind of getting back to what really matters, right? We're getting to either meet up in person or really kind of fine tuning what even online means when we get together. It's not quite so much the way it was, which I really love. Now, of course, I live in Texas, where in Texas we don't have to do anything now, right? we don't wear masks. We don't do anything. So I've actually been able to go back into the local communities now too, and I have to tell you that shift in people's mindset about how we look at the connections that we make has been mind-boggling, but I think it's been a shift for the positive.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to have to grapple with, especially for introverts that are trying to come back out into the real world and they found their beautiful place on these online communities. And then those of us that are extroverts and really want to be out there embracing the locale and just finding their passion being amongst the community. So I appreciate you for that perspective. Talk to us a little bit about the difference between having a connection and community and why intention matters. I mean, you've always mentioned that intention matters. Talk to us about that.
Well, I think a lot of the buzzword, is about having a network, right? And whether you call it a tribe or a clan or a network, whatever your word for is, everybody needs to have one, right? But I actually think that the word should be changed from networking to next working, because it really is about what happens next, right? So it really honestly is about what is that. But the reality is, even though social calls it connection, is it really? Just because you send somebody a friend request or you send them a connection request, they're not really a connection yet, right? They're really a contact, really, when you first get them. So to me, here's what I believe with everything in my being, is that the only difference between a contact and a contract is that R, and that R stands for relationships, right? Because relationships are the currency in the business environment that we are now. And so I always like to say, well, if relationships are the currency in today's business environment, like how fat's your wallet, right? Is it really, have you made those connections really be connections? And I believe that when you are creating those connections and going from a network to a community, it is about intention, right? And so I believe that the difference for me between serving and selling is your intention, right? That's the difference between whether you want to serve or whether you want to sell. And I have built my business from a service first mentality, right? That's what's important. So when people connect on social, are they really connecting to connect, Are they really just connected because they've been told that they need this huge reach of having a network and all that kind of stuff, right? And so for me, I just really feel like we need to be thinking about it. So if you're thinking that, I always love to give a visual, if you are thinking that you want to build your business with relationships with that currency, let's look at an ATM machine. Right. So think of an ATM machine. Think of all those little buttons instead of having numbers on them, if they had faces of people on them. Right. So think of an ATM machine. So when you think of that and relationships are currency, are you making more deposits or more withdrawals? Right. In that ATM machine, more deposits or more withdrawals. Right. Because that is what's going to matter and how you're going to get all of those people that are a contact, whether they become a contract or not. Right. Really, that's how they become a connection, and that's how you build community. So when you asked me to talk about this a little bit, I want to say, Adam, that I really put some thought in that because this is one of my most favorite topics. And I also knew that we had a brief amount of time, but I always love to make sure that everybody takes away value. And so I asked Adam if I could teach an exercise that I walk my clients through. And I think it's a visual that I want people to know. And so for me, it's called the table of 12. And so here's what, before I set that up for you, I want you to think about what it is that you do. Like each one of us to think about what it is that we do, because we get paid in more than one way. When you get paid, you can get paid in revenue or you can get paid in opportunities, right? And for me, opportunities, when you're thinking about opportunities, ops, that's what I like to call it, op, right? That stands for other people's people. So you can make revenue, money, or you can have opportunities, other people's people. So think about when you're on a podcast, right? You don't know all their audience. It's a great opportunity, but are you going to show up by serving, or are you going to show up by trying to sell? Like your result is going to totally be different in your intention when you show up. So there are opportunities, but the thing you need to remember is that opportunities don't make appointments. You have to be ready and prepared for that opportunity when it shows up. So now back to the table. So first I want to set the table for yourself, because I think it's really important to be decisive. For me, one of the things that I learned early on is that it took me too long to make a decision, right? It just took me too long, and I had to come up with some criteria. And so I think that for me, and I think for a lot of people out there, we don't just do what we do to make money, right? I mean, there's revenue generating things, and then there's things that feed our soul. And I believe that when you do revenue generating things properly and effectively, it frees you up to be able to do more things that feed your soul, right? So when I thought about that, I thought, well, when opportunities come to the table, which is it? So I created this table, and I have a whole visual for myself of this beautiful table in front on the beach at an ocean, because that's what I love. And so every time an opportunity comes to the table, there's the visual, it has to fit in one of the 4 chairs. And one of my chairs is it a speaking or media opportunity? Do I get a chance to write or speak, right? One of them, is it have to do with one of the services that I provide? One of the chairs, is it about one of the products that I sell? But the 4th chair, is it an opportunity to serve? Is it something that feeds my soul, a way that I can serve a community? And so when somebody has an opportunity that comes to the table, I need to very quickly decide, does it fit in one of those chairs? Which chair is it? Do I have the bandwidth for that right now? So I can easily say yes or no, not now. Right? So which one is that? So how I did that was creating this thing for me, and that I do for my clients, which is called creating the table of 12. So that's what I kind of really want to show you guys today. And I know the last time I talked, here's these questions. I'd like to show you a process so that you can apply it when you don't have me, right? And this is what it looks like. So the table of 12, there's 3 steps. And when you do it, because you're obviously not going to do it right this minute, but when you do it, do them in the steps the way I outline them. Don't, because you know what step 3 is, go, oh, I'm going to do step 1, 2, and 3 at the same time. It really works better in your mind if you do them one at a time. So here's what I want you to think about. Think about this table of 12. You're going to have this amazing dinner party that's going to be catered, no holds barred. It's going to be amazing. And you get to invite 12 people for business that you would love to have. It could be Oprah, Mark Cuban, and like anybody. You can just, Steve Jobs, whatever you want, whoever you want to sit at that table that you know that if you could just sit them at that table and talk business, pick their brain, get all these ideas, brainstorm, you just know it would be amazing to your bottom line in your business, right? So step one is to create a circle, 12 circles around it at the dinner table. Who would sit in those 12 seats if you could invite anybody? So that's step one. So your mind should be thinking, Mark Zuckerberg, like whoever it is, right, that you know would be great for your business. That's step one. Step two, it's a little harder, is from each one of those 12 circles to take 3 lines, kind of like a half of a sun. And I want you to write 3 characteristics of that person, because you might not be able to invite Oprah or Mark Cuban or Steve Jobs for dinner, right? But what were the characteristics that made you choose them? Are they an influencer? Do you love the way they do business? Like, is it Gary Vee? You love, like, what are the characteristics of those 12 people? And maybe you could only come up with 6. Maybe you can only come up with 8, whatever. But whatever those 12 people are, what were the characteristics? So now you should have a list of 3 characteristics. That was step 2. Now here's where it gets fun. Step 3 is, guess what? You probably already know people who have those characteristics. You're probably already either in your network or in your community. So now you just need to say, oh, well, here's the characteristics I was looking for. Who are they? So now draw a line from them and put in somebody's name that you do know. Or maybe they're not really, you haven't built a relationship with yet. Because for me, it is really about, it's not only what I bring to the table, it's how you show up, how you serve, and how you support the people you invite to sit at your table. So my table of 12 is like my own personal advisory board. These are my people, and I do this every year, and that's who I'm going to really work on serving the next year. So now you have those people, and like I said, you might not be able to think of them, whoever those people are. Okay, and maybe you know them, maybe you don't. But now let's kind of put this in the way of network versus connection versus a community. And here's where it all is going to tie together. Think about all the time we're spending on LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, and we're connecting to all these people based on a bio, right? Or we do a search and we think, oh, like you don't really know, like the things that I want to know before I invite somebody to sit at my table. Do their values align with mine? Do they do business? Do they have integrity? Do their beliefs align with mine? Right? Those are conversations that I want to have. So what I like to do is, here's my table, and I fill it out to the best that I can. And then when I'm out there thinking about who I want to connect to, I want to connect to people who would sit at my table, not just connect to anybody. Now, they may not be the person who end up sitting at your table. They may connect you to the person who's going to sit at your table, but there's no reason for us to be spending all this time. We only have so much time, but if we could be intentional about it and be thinking about, wow, who would really sit at my table? So one of the things that you should be thinking about, like, oh, I don't know who to invite to my table or who that might be, but think about what you do, right? And there's a lot of overlap here, people who may overlap some in what you do. Adam, like you and I have gotten to be really good friends and have gotten to build a good relationship. And some of what we do does overlap. And that's fabulous, right? Because you can't be all things for everybody. So I always like to tell people all the time, you're not trying to reinvent ice cream. You're just trying to make your own flavor. As much as people love butter pecan and Rocky Road, there are still people who like chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry, right? So you're just trying to figure out what is my flavor that I have and who supports that. So think about what you do. What I always like to say is, when people hire you for what you do, every time you solve a problem, it creates another problem. That's just how business is. You solve a problem and it highlights or spotlights another problem. Who solves that problem? Like when people hire me and we do all these things together, some of the time that means, oh, guess what? We need a new website. We need to update your website. I don't do websites, right? So I want to make sure that there is somebody at my table that when I am doing my part, I can send them to that. And while I can help somebody with branding, right? I like to stay in my lane. So somebody before me would be somebody who does branding. I want them to sit at my table. So who are the industries, so to speak, the people that you know that fit those characteristics that have your people before you? And who are the people who may need them after you? And then there's during you, right? What are those opportunities? So think about them when you sit at your table. So now maybe you find the perfect person, right? They fit your characteristics, you know somebody, you're building a relationship with them, they're one of your partners, you know, because somebody can be a promotional partner, a strategic partner, or a referral partner. And I could give a whole nother talk on the differences of those because they're not the same thing. A lot of times people like to think they're interchangeable. They're actually not. They're very distinctly different. They can overlap. You can have, somebody could be more than one of those, but they are very distinct. So now you have this person, you're sending referrals to each other, you're doing introductions to each other, you have a really strong connection, your business aligns, all of that. Great. Now go find somebody else that does that, right? Because now your next line is to find 3 more people that are just that perfect person. So now you have your table of 12, you have the right characteristics, you built a relationship with them. But just like if you were a realtor, you need more than one insurance agent, more than one mortgage person, right? You know, and vice versa. So who are those other ones? So now you have this really robust thing. So for me, I'm not going to get on the phone and have coffee with somebody that in no way, shape, or form will ever fit into my table of 12. I may serve them by connecting them to somebody who I believe will, and I may have a conversation with them and I just like them as a person and they may lead me to someone. But when I'm out there, how some people like to say, oh, I'm prospecting, I'm going to get leads. Forget that. Like, yeah, go ahead, spend all your time doing that. But well, how about if you just think about serving instead of trying to sell, and you just think, wow, who would sit at my table that the other people at my table would serve them? Who's could I invite to sit at my table that I would be able to serve them and give them? And who could serve my clients? So it's always service to each other, service to clients. So you have this whole amazing table that is literally your advisory board. So you don't need to go out and be connected to everyone. You build a community here that is based on who is our ideal buyer. So there's the sales part, right? Who's our ideal buyer? And I think I don't know if I did, but if I told you last time that having a target market is so great, but it's only step 1. That just means somebody has a problem and you have a solution. But if you have a target buyer, that means they have a problem, you have a solution, but they're actively looking for that solution, which kind of changes everything, really. So if I know these 12 people and our values and how we do business align, our integrity aligns, and we can do all of that, and we have a similar target buyer, man, how amazing is that table of 12 now? I don't need to go out and be connected to 5 million other people and spend all my time sending out requests and doing all that. I could build a community instead of a network. So the fastest way that you can up-level your business and have massive growth is to really surround yourself with people who are where you want to be and are willing to help you get there, because that's really important. Because if you want to impact the world, you have to start by impacting people, right? Because it's all about people. Success is about you. Significance is about impacting others. And I'm not here to just be successful. I want to make a significant difference, because it's not enough. If you want to be the light of the world, you know, like you want to just shine this light and help the world, you can't do it if you're still worried about how to keep your lights on. Like, it just doesn't happen. So you only have so much time. Where can you make that impact? Where are those opportunities? So one of the things I always like to say is, when you were born, you weren't born a winner and you weren't born a loser. You were born a chooser. And you need to choose wisely, because the reality is you are not defined by your zip code, your ethnicity, your parents, your gender, the country you live in, who's in the White House, none of those things. You get to choose. You're defined by your choices. So you need to know how to choose wisely. So realizing that and using it to build that community so that you can not just network, but build a community. Having those relationships is how you're going to monetize in a lot less time. You're going to enjoy it so much more because you're going to build these relationships right? And that's how you're really going to have that currency. And your ATM, you'll be able to do so many more deposits, but you'll be able to get so many more withdrawals.
I love it.
So,
I mean, boom. I think for so many of us, especially the way you just laid that out, I love how tangible you lay things out, Patty, because it's on everybody's mind, right? We've spent all this time building these online personas and connecting with people and having these networks of strength. And that's okay, because a lot of times visibility matters. But at the end of the day, like you said, bandwidth also matters, right? We're people. We want to have lives that we can enjoy and we can grow. And so you have to be able to approach those in your community with intention that matters, because if you fall short or you neglect them, they're going to remember that. And that might not be somebody you want that to happen to. I know I wouldn't want that to happen to me. So there's consideration. And I love that that's your approach, especially with the who will sit at my table for dinner, right? Because so much conversation happens at the table anyways.
Right.
One of the things my wife and I do is once a month, we do a friends and food day, where we just have a day of just an open kitchen. Anybody can come over and they can come and just make food, hang out, eat, and talk. We talk
I
about
love that.
we talk about life, we talk about business, we talk about world issues, we talk about just meditation and personal, healing. We talk about everything. And in those moments when we're having our friends with food day, we always have our staples. There's always, a group of 6 or 7 people that are always there. They're our strength, they're our community, they're people that we can count on. And in business, you have to see it the same way. You've got to see, who is my strength? Who can I count on? And you mentioned other people's people. Who can I count on that I can trust is going to give me visibility and edification? How can I edify them? There's a reason we have friendships in business, and it's okay, and it builds on that. I love the way that you just illustrated that, is building a table where you sit down and have a meal together.
It just does help you to be able to make decisions. So the thing is, really, it's like, if you do this exercise, like I said, you may find that you won't find all 12 right away. You'll see these gaps. And that should tell you where you should be spending your time. Oh, wow, I only have 7 people at my table. What am I missing? What should I be looking at? Go take a look. I don't really believe in competition, but go take a look at other people who do what you do. Is there a gap that maybe you could feel like, why isn't that person sitting at my table? And now when you start going out and connecting, right, you can connect with attention and say, oh, wow, I have these 4 spots at my table that aren't full. And that doesn't help me, but it kind of doesn't help them other people that are at my table too. And you could reach out to them and say, hey, now you got to know that when I'm doing this, when I invite them to the table, they don't even know about the table. But then I share with them about the table so that they create a table, right, for them. And it's like, wow, like you got invited to the table for this reason, right? This is the reason that I invited you. And like, who else would you like to see seated at the table? And sometimes I'll say, oh, I would love to see somebody who does podcast production, or I love somebody who does this or that. And I'm like, oh, wow, who do I know? So sometimes it's serving them and helping them fill their table, so to speak, if that's what they do. And I have all my clients from the beginning, like, we're going to do this table. Like, that's the first thing. So all these things you're out there doing, joining these communities, doing all these things, paying this money, thinking that's going to be the end all be all. Let's just be a little bit intentional and be really clear, because how many times do somebody will say to you, like, they want to help you. You can't even tell them how to help you. Like when somebody says to me, and I'm in a position where, somebody will say, well, Patty, who could I introduce you to? I just think about, where's the gaps in my table? Like, where are those gaps? Like, oh, I would love to be introduced to somebody who does this or like this or they're like that, because it's always about either duplicating the perfect person at my table or filling a gap at my table that maybe somebody at my table needs too. And so I'm very, very clear. If there's anything anybody knows about me, I am very intentional about what I do. I love to serve, but you can serve, and you can serve with intention. And I think that is just really, like I said, the opportunities come, but you have to be ready. I'm always ready when that opportunity comes, for sure.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. Jonathan, do you have a comment?
I did. I just wanted to jump in with 2 things. So I'm also very much a visual learner. So that was very helpful for me. But there's so much to this that I think is valuable. But the 2 things that really jumped out to me that I love about this exercise, well, 3 things. I've got to jump on what Adam said about how actionable this is. Like, it's when, just like how, you can send someone a friend request on LinkedIn and say, look, I've networked. It's like that same thing where, oh my God, I just lost my thought. It was so great. It was so great. Oh, it was just like how you can send, sorry, just like how you can send it, like a friend request to someone on LinkedIn and say, I've networked, I made a connection. It's another thing to say, I put up a post and I've provided value. What I love about this is that like you did so much more than that, right? You didn't just do a thing and say, well, I did the thing, so you take it or leave it. Like, provided so much value for people with this breakdown of how you help your clients and how you help people in your network, continue to expand. The two things that really stuck out to me about this is it's that idea of sort of taking inventory of what you have and realizing, and this should be encouraging to everyone, is just realizing like you have so many more people at your table than you might think. Or that idea of, I might not have Oprah at my table, because that was obviously one of the first people I thought of was Oprah. I want Oprah at my table. But then you sit here and you go, okay, charismatic, ambitious, loving, thoughtful, whatever it might be. And you sit there and you go, oh my gosh, how many, there's so many people in my life who fill that. This is awesome. And in that same vein, I think this is a really great exercise for helping people to learn a little bit more about themselves and learn a little bit more about like, oh, I even in business, like when I'm making, when I'm connecting or networking with people, I realize that I gravitate towards this sort of person, but I really need to know this kind of person more. Or I need, I'm so good at talking to people and making these connections. I don't know how to back it up with data. Or I don't know how to show it on paper, stuff like that. And being able to really sit there and go, oh, like, this is a real opportunity for me to grow not only my business, but to grow as an individual and to grow as someone who really, hey, this is a skill I don't have, right? I can, you can be part of my table and we can get stuff from each other from a business standpoint, but also from a holistic standpoint. Like, I can learn from you. I could learn something from you. And I think there's something so, I feel like it gets a lot of networking seems so overwhelming. Like just the concept, the idea of networking of, well, I've sent this many messages on LinkedIn today and I sent that many emails today, but being able to really take a step back and take stock of the people you already have in your corner, the people who are already, they might not be actively working with you, or they might be someone you knew years and years ago, but they're still a closer connection than someone you could be cold calling on LinkedIn. There's still a close, there's still a closer connection than someone that you're just sending an email to with, an intention of commerce. And I really love that. It's making me, I know we can't, not do the exercise right now, but it's really making me take a moment to really take inventory.
I actually have a visual of this that I do when I do a PowerPoint. I actually do. I have a slide for this and it shows it and has examples on the side. If any of you want it, I'd be more than happy to send it to you and you could put it in the comments if anybody wants it. I do have a visual for it so people can see exactly how it works and how they should put in there. But like you said, it shows you gaps of things that maybe that you want to do and stuff. And I have to tell you that every one of the 12 people that sit at my table, once a month, I meet with each one of them. So you may think, oh, there's my time that I'm spending not having coffee with somebody else, right? For 15 minutes. 15 minutes once a month, we have it on the calendar. And it's always like, what's new? What's a project you're working on? Like, what is something? Because we're always taking inventory of, oh, well, I know somebody that, maybe they're not sitting at my table, but it also opens up conversation about like, why isn't that somebody that's, why aren't you doing that? What could we always be doing together? So it kind of moves people kind of around the table too. But it kind of opens up conversation around the table too. And I think that is really important. So if you're going to do an event or you're going to do something, just call up the people on your table. Like you already have them, but you're always adding to it too. But when you're intentional and thinking about it, if somebody says to you, oh, I'd love for, they send you a request. Oh, I'd love for us to get together so I can learn more about you and see if maybe we can, whatever. Okay, that's great. Awesome. But like, I want to know more than that. That's,
what is the value of this? We're especially sitting, and it's also a nice kind of a barometer in sense where you've got, listen, these are the people I've got in my corner. I'm happy like to take a phone call or to get coffee, but like, what is the value of that going to be put up against to the value of chatting with one of these people? Like, what is that? And that's, that's not, I think a lot of, that's not even like a challenge as much as it's like, no, like just bring something to the table, like, bring something new, really make you know, value is also a word I think that gets thrown around a lot. Bring value, like bring actual something that this 15-minute phone call is going to end and I'm going to go 12 minutes of that phone call were, you know, insanely productive, and 3 minutes were us just getting to know each other. Like really let me walk away with something that shows me, you know what, talking to this person at my table might very well have been made a larger impact on this project I'm working on right now. But holy crap, this new person really blew me away and made me think about things in a way that I hadn't previously. That kind of connection, that's, and you said it earlier, like that's community. That's a community. Yes.
It kind of calls you too, because I'll actually be kind of vulnerable here and even share with you that one of the people who sit at my table, I was having a conversation with her and I was telling her, here's the vulnerable part, that there was somebody that I had a conversation with that said something to me that just didn't hit me right. Like it didn't hit me right. And I literally was going to like uninvite her from my table. Like that. I mean, it just didn't sit right with me. And so this other person, I didn't tell her who it was. And I was just telling her this happened. And like, I'm kind of upset about it. And I was trying to figure out like how I was going to handle it. And I just needed to voice it to somebody. And she kind of called me out on it because we had it. She's like, so Patty, I'm just going to challenge. I'm not telling you don't do it, but here's what my challenge to you is it what she said, or did she trigger something in you that from something that maybe that's really what it was? Like maybe before you want to uninvite her from your table, like maybe you should have a conversation and figure out what exactly was that. And so I was like, wow, call me out, right? You know, call me out on that. And so I actually thought about that. And when I got on the phone with that original person, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, how am I going to bring up? In my mind, I was trying to figure out like how I was going to bring up the thing. And before I ever even brought it up, she said to me, she said, you know what, Patty, last time we talked, I said this, and I just want to clarify that for you. Like what I really meant by that is like, you're so this and that. And I would love for you to do this, and this is how I see that it would be, you know. And so really honestly, it was kind of like when you're married, you know, that whole exercise about what you said and what I heard were not the same thing, right? You know. And if she wouldn't have called me out, I have to tell you, I was kind of really upset about it. I think I don't know if I would have actually kicked her off my table, but I would definitely, it had changed how I thought. And when you build the relationship with somebody to that point, if I hadn't let that first person really know me well enough and been vulnerable with my table, she wouldn't have been able to call me out on that. And I think that is part of a community, is where that doesn't just mean everybody's telling you how brilliant you are. It means that when you're not looking at something the way, or you're missing a point, that they kick you in the butt and say, no, I think you missed the mark on that one, which was really powerful, right? You know, so I think I love it on so many levels of how I have built my business. And not only that, but I think the number one thing it is for me is sometimes when you're out building your business, like it can just be so overwhelming looking at all of this. And when I break it down to this, it's just like, oh, I have an hour free here. And you know what? I have a couple seats at my table, or this one's perfect. I want to add another one here. Now I know what it is I'm supposed to do. I don't have to think about this whole big thing. I can just bring it down to just this. And it just makes it so much easier to do.
It's the name of the game, right? Trying to take the pressure off. I love the story in the share today. And that's exactly what it is, right? Facts tell, stories sell. And we're all writing a story. And in our story, we've got characters. That's why they're called characters, because they have specific traits that align with our narrative and our story. And we are building an ongoing story, our passion, our perspective. And you want to have characters that matter to your story in your circle. And I love that. And it's okay. And I love that you shared that vulnerable piece there, because sometimes our story shifts. Things in life happen, our perspectives change, our drive maybe changes, and we might have to change who's a minor and a major player in our stories. And that's okay too.
Totally. Because the reality is, like, we're in the, I don't care what kind of business you have, you're in the relationship business. And one of the things that I always love, it's kind of a litmus test for me in a little bit of way, is when I talk to somebody, I always love to ask this question. Always about the questions, right? I always love to say to somebody, it's like, do you consider yourself B2B or B2C? Right? You know, business to business or business to consumer, or maybe somebody is both. And if automatically, like, they're like this, because really honestly, when somebody asks me that, I'm like, I'm not in any of those. I'm in the P2P business. I'm in the people to people business. I don't look at people like a business, because I always want to say, guess what? If you're sitting at a networking group or you're sitting at a meeting in any way, if you look around, there's not a B or a C sitting next to you. There's a person sitting next to you. And that conversation needs to be about, we're in the people business. And if you're not in the people business, you need to clear that up first, right?
I wonder where that gets lost. I wonder where that gets lost, where there are people who see, where there are people who just see it as a business, or they see others as, means to an end. Maybe not even in like a malicious way, but it's so, it's so interesting hearing you say like, oh, when I'm in one of those rooms, like there are only people there. And I sat here and I was like, oh, that's a revelation. But it's also like, no, they're just people. Like they're all people. And it's so, there's so much that we build up with, sorry, low, did I low on my phone, guys? We're 20% battery. There's something so incredible about that. Just remembering that very, very simple fact that like, yes, there are people who run businesses, and yes, people are consumers, and like people are, XYZ, but they're people first. People run businesses. And
people do business with people.
Yes, exactly. It's so, it's no matter how many times I hear that, I feel like it's always going to be a refreshing thing to hear that, like throughout, no matter who you're talking to, no matter who you're trying to impress, like they have a lot more in common with you than you might think. And there's something very grounding about that. There's something very grounding about that I really like.
I loved what we had a couple of weeks ago. It was when we were all talking about the take your dog to work day. Mm-hmm. I have to tell you how many of us all shared about that. I felt at the end of that call, like so much even closer to everyone learning about their animal.
Yeah. It's such a human thing. It's such a human thing to just sit there and go like, and it's, people always talk about business like it's like dating, because it's this idea of like, we're trying to get to know each other, but there is this, this undercurrent of like, we both know why we're really here and what we're really after. But when you can really break that wall down and just have that moment of like, we're just going to, it's one of the things that I've, few silver linings of COVID, very, very, very small silver linings, but it was a lot with my coworkers. We'd all be just sitting in our houses, and we had this time where we were all on a Zoom call, and, someone's 2-year-old walks on screen because she's 2. And it's just this very human moment where you sit there and you're like, I understand that you're, the CEO, chief marketing officer, chief financial, whatever, but you're human, and you wake up in the morning and you have anxieties like I do that are very large scale and also very, very small. And there's something about that will always, that is something that I've talk about plaques. I think we should have that tacked on our wall somewhere. That just reminds you that I do people to people business. I think that's really powerful, Patty. And it's hard to remember. It's really hard to remember. No matter how true it always is, it is hard to remember that these are all just people we're interacting with.
And that's why when you're doing your table of 12, yes, originally you're thinking about things and whatever, and the people that you're putting at the table do have a business, but they're a people first, right? They're a person first. And that's why you have to make sure it aligns. It's not like, oh, I just want a website person on my table. I want somebody who aligns, that I like, that I would want to invite to dinner at my house for real.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So Adam.
I think that today was amazing for a number of reasons. Jonathan, thank you for your share. People are humans, right? And we want to know the human side of things. And I love that you approached that little piece there where you're like, it's kind of like dating. We both know why we're here. In business, we both know why we're here. We're trying to get business done. But how powerful is it with Patty's share today to be able to not only tell somebody, here's why you matter to me, and I would love to just be upfront with that, or here's what's missing from my life, and look at yourself and ask people if they can help you fill that void. And that is just such a powerful takeaway from your very tangible exercise of setting the table, Patty. So I appreciate you so much. I love the visuals. I love the way you approach the conversation. And I think this has been a fantastic hour. And I really hope that everybody just listens to this over and over again and takes away and actually builds their community with intention.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love this community. So thank you so much for having me again.
Yes. And we're so grateful to have you as a part of it. Really, sincerely, thank you, thank you. It's remarkable to think about, even just the things that you spoke about today. The idea of how much people in our community can take away from this, from being able to listen to this whole interview. The fact that we have this is so, it's really, really, not to overuse the word, but it's really valuable, Patty. It's really wonderful that you provided this time for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I love it. So thanks so much. Let me know, Adam, if you'd like me to get that visual over to you, and I will certainly send it to you.
Yeah, that would be great. I could link that right below the post that we put up. That would be great.
Okay, good.
Oh,
I'll
yeah,
do
man.
that. Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks.
Well, I appreciate you guys for jumping on today. This was fantastic. Guys, if you guys are listening, go connect with Patty, follow, listen, learn, and leverage, because you will never, ever, ever regret being connected to Patty. Everything she does is just world class. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys have a great week.
All right. Have a good weekend.